listening to LidyPod, Beatles banter with Bedford and Beasley.
So Dave, it's time for another LidyPod. I think this is LidyPod 10, I can't remember.
Oh, it could be. Hang on, how many fingers have I got? Let me try and count. I think we are. Double figures.
Who would have thought? Yeah. Anyway, we've gone out for our usual breakfast, but we've not gone to either of our usual breakfast locations. Tell the listeners where we are today, because it is very relevant to the whole idea of LidyPod.
Well, let me eat it down, because I'm going to Strawberry Field. Yes, it's open. The gates are open for good. We are here, and it's a fabulous location. Breakfast is brilliant, by the way. Should mention that. But yeah, now that Strawberry Field is open again by the Salvation Army, we're looking out over the gardens where you can walk through. And of course, we're going to do a special from here soon, aren't we?
We are. We're going to do a special from Strawberry Field because I'm sure people will have heard about the reopening, or the opening, I suppose, if you look at it in one way. First time it's open to the public, really. But it is looking brilliant, and well, we won't spoil too much. We won't tell you too much now what's here at Strawberry Field. But one thing they do have is brilliant food.
And as you know, we are connoisseurs of breakfast. I think people might get the wrong idea about us. What do you think? But no, Christmas is coming. Dave's getting fat, but he's enjoying it. What a breakfast.
You and me both, Dave. Now today, Dave, we're going to be talking about Andy White. In a nutshell, just tell us about where Andy White fits into the Beatles story.
Well, if you look back just a couple of podcasts ago, we were talking about the recording of Love Me Do, and the whole changeover from Pete Best to Ringo as Beatles drummer. And of course, the first time Ringo goes to Abbey Road Studios to record, he does numerous takes of Love Me Do. George Martin wasn't happy with any of them and decides, like he said about Pete Best, he was going to bring in a session drummer. Now, there's been a lot of myths about, was the session drummer there to replace Pete or to replace Ringo? What was really going on? So when I was working on my second book, The Fab 104 Evolution of the Beatles, I thought, I want to speak to Andy White, and he's a fascinating guy, quietly spoken, so listen carefully, but he'd been over in New York for years and years, so telephone call, had a lovely conversation with him to actually say, what did happen, how did it all work out and stuff, and so I had a fabulous conversation with Andy, lovely man who is sadly no longer with us, but right up until his death, he was in his 80s, he was still teaching marching bands, marching up and down the halls, teaching them to play the marching drum. Good on him.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm really looking forward to this because I of all the little stories within the history of the Beatles, this is the one in a way, that sort of period when, they were thinking about Pete coming out, Pete went out, Ringo came in, Andy White was there. I'm absolutely fascinated by this part of the story. So I'm looking forward to this. When did you do this interview, Dave?
Oh, this one was back in 2012. I got to speak to him. I said, a fascinating character, and as you say, it's one of those little bits of Beatles history where nobody was quite sure at the time what was going to happen. It's their first record. George Martin's getting to know them as a group, was unsure after the first session, was unsure then at the second session when they did with Ringo. So then they have a third session on the 11th of September 1962. And as you'll find out, Ringo walks in and sees another guy setting up drums and think, what's going on? Are they doing a Pete Best on me? So, fascinating chat with Andy White.
Right, here we go. It's Dave Bedford talking with Andy White back in 2012.
You're listening to LidyPod, Beatles banter with Bedford and Beasley.
Oh, it's really nice to talk to you.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. So how long have you been over in America then?
Since 83.
Since 83. What took you to America?
Well, my second marriage was to an American lady.
Ah, right.
So after my dealings and dealings in Britain,
yeah,
decided to come over here. Yeah.
Right.
which was a good choice, actually. That after I'd been working with Marlene Dietrich for 11 years, when I came back onto the session scene, that had all changed, of course.
Yeah.
I then decided to go for the job at the Scottish Radio Orchestra in Glasgow, BBC. The job became vacant. So anyway, I got that job and worked there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then they had a huge strike in the BBC.
Ooh.
They wanted to, first of all, disband 2 symphony orchestras. And there was a hullabaloo about that, and everyone went on strike, all the BBC musicians countrywide.
Right.
For about 9 weeks, I would think, out on the ticket line and all that. And but the strange thing was that the outcome was they reinstated the symphony orchestras, but they got rid of 5 regional orchestras, and ours was one of them. So there I was, left in Glasgow,
Yeah.
with no work. You see. Yeah. So that's what made me decide to come over here.
Yeah.
That was a good choice.
Oh, good. So, did you continue doing session work over there?
Oh, no, because nobody knew me here.
Of course.
So, and I got in some gig bands, like doing dance work and stuff like that.
Right.
But also I got into bagpipe bands, which is where I started way back. And I got into teaching bagpipe, the drummers in bagpipe bands.
Yeah.
And also involved in their organization, which was all right. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
So, how old were you when you first started playing the drum?
12 years old.
12.
In the Boy Scouts. I enjoyed playing this drum so much. I thought I'd like to do this for the rest of my life.
Wow.
It didn't happen right away.
Yeah. So how old were you when you got your first drum set?
I was probably about 21, 22. I got a job down the west coast of Scotland in a holiday resort in an orchestra there.
Yeah.
But only for a short time. Then some of us went down into England to the Isle of Wight for a summer season, so which we played all right. And then during that time, I got a call from Vic Lewis, the orchestra leader, to see if I wanted to join his band, which I did do, and I was there for 6 years with him, touring on the road, the rigors of the road,
Right. Oh my goodness. So you had all of that. And what sort of music was that then? Was that jazz? That big band music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, Vic Lewis's band, they played a lot of Stan Kenton music. In other words, it was a dance band.
Yeah.
But with a bit of big band jazz thrown in, as it were.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the strange thing was, David, that this was the time when they were bringing over bands from the States, like Count Basie Band, or doing tours.
Mm-hmm.
The two unions, the British Union and the American Union, came to an agreement whereby if the Basie Band came over to Britain, then a British band had to go over to the States. Same length of time, like like an exchange thing.
Yeah.
So what happened there was that the Basie Band came over and they sent Vic Lewis's band to America. So that was my first taste of being in America.
Right. So when would that have been?
We did a 3-week tour, but the strange thing was they put us in a rock and roll show. They put us in a rock and roll show, which to me was great because I hadn't seen proper rock and roll, in the flesh.
Right.
And the band they had a big band, which was great.
Yeah.
But they had so many people on the show. Well, to begin with, the top of the bill was Bill Haley and the Comets.
Right. Okay. Oh,
Yeah. And then they had, all sorts of people. I got first-hand idea of what rock and roll was about.
wow.
Yeah, when I came back from that tour with Vic, there was a job came up. Another drumming friend of mine in London, a Scottish guy, Jackie Dugan was his name. He wanted to be a jazz player, you know.
Yeah.
He was offered this rock and roll television show, and he didn't like it. So he asked me if I would like to do it.
Right.
And I said, sure. And that was the start of all the rock and roll and session work and everything. That first television show led to 3 television shows in a row. So I was in the deep end. Because up until then, most of the pop stuff was either skiffle or, you know, the singing groups. Yeah, there weren't any rock stuff. There wasn't any rock stuff. That the first television series was with people like Matty Wilde, Billy Fury, all
the big names.
Pans.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Larry Pound's stable, of course, isn't it? Yeah.
Stable, you know?
Did you start getting your session work then? Once you do on the TV?
Yeah. Once I was on those television things, you know, yeah, and the word got around, and that's the way it kind of mushroomed, you know.
Yeah. So then, so it was Ron Richards you got to know then, wasn't it? Is that right?
Richards?
Yeah.
Okay. That very first television show with Marty and all that.
Yeah.
They had Ron Richards was involved with that.
Right.
And the guy who worked with the Vernon girls, yeah, he was doing all the arranging for them.
Right.
And it was actually his idea. You know, the drummer plays 8 beats on the hi-hat,
yeah,
and the backbeat, backbeat in the snare.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, his idea, it wasn't his idea, he was trying to catch me out. He wanted me to play rock and roll without playing the eighth note. So I was really playing just with the left off beat and the bass drum figure,
right,
which wasn't easy to begin.
I can imagine.
No, because you become reliant on the eight on the right hand.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
So that was just a funny edge to that scene there.
Yeah.
And that's where Ron Richards got it for the Beatles. See, because when we did Love Me Do, that's what I didn't play the eighth note. They were being played by Ringo on a tambourine. So Ron thought he'd do this guy's idea on Love Me Do, which we did do.
Yeah, yeah. Yesterday I played your version of Love Me Do and Ringo's version of Love Me Do to listen carefully for the difference, and I could tell there was a little something extra, and whether there was something on the hi-hat, there's just a little something extra in there that you were doing that Ringo wasn't doing.
Yeah.
That I could hear. And I thought, I must study this and listen carefully for it, because I'm a guitarist. I played the snare drum in Boys Brigade, but I've always been a guitarist, so I never tended to listen for the drums, but I thought, let me go and listen to the two, and I could hear the difference. And you were doing just a little extra something that Ringo didn't.
What I tried to do was play the bass drum as near as I could to Paul's figure.
Yeah.
On the bass,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that record of the guys that came out actually 28 years after but it came out on Ringo's birthday. It's only got 3 sides on it. The main thing is you've got my version and Ringo's version of Love Me Do.
Yeah.
and you can tell the difference in the drum sound, because he had a strange old drum set to begin with, and I had this brand new that I got in America, more or less brand new Black Pearl Ludwig set, which was just, chalk and cheese.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, I noticed that you could hear the difference in the kits, as well as what you were playing. I could hear the sound was different. And again, it's not something I'd really listened for before. Coming onto the Love Me Do It and that day of recording, can you remember how much notice you got when they wanted you to come in?
I have no idea. I just got a call from EMI, I didn't know that Ron was involved at all, not till I got there.
Oh, I see. Right, okay.
Yeah, they just have that was more or less the thing in those days. There were guys called fixers. Some of them worked for record companies. Some of them were musicians who booked for bands and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, that call came from EMI and not from Ron himself.
Right. So it's only when you arrive you actually know what's going to happen that day. Because I suppose when you think of the songs that you actually did with the Beatles, it's not sort of straight rock and roll.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with that, because
no.
it was straight rock and roll. It's apart from Ron and his trick beat.
How did you get on with like John, Paul, and George?
Well, Ron, that was the only time I ever saw them.
Yeah, it was just that one day.
But, no, they were fine. They were fine. It was actually mostly Paul and John that I worked with, because they were actually the writers,
Yeah.
And they didn't have any written music. What we had to do was I had to go through the routines with them. What they wanted, and they had the thing all worked out what they wanted. I was impressed with the music they had. That they had written, because at that time most of the sessions were people doing maybe covers of American recordings. Those early things, you'll notice that Ringo didn't play or try to play any bass figures, whereas I did. And I guess the reason for that was because of the big band with and the Bill Haley tour, the big American band. The drummer did try to catch the figures, the bass figures. You know? Yeah. So that's one thing I learned on that tour.
Right. When Ringo comes in, I know he's mentioned it. I'm guessing he was surprised to see you.
Sure. I think he thought, well, here goes. I'm getting the chop now.
Yeah. So
but of course, that wasn't on the cards anyway, because I was 10 years older than any of them.
Yeah. Did Ringo look as if he was surprised to see you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the others obviously hadn't told him.
But I never even... Well, the only thing I said to him was hello, that's all, because I didn't get a chance to speak to him anyway. They needed all the time they had, to do the work there.
Yeah. I saw it in an interview that as well as Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You, that you say that the release of Please Please Me was your drumming as well. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I insist on that because the drum sound is so different.
Yeah.
It's just a cleaner sound all around, Well, there were all sorts of things said about Please Please Me, but because he said, well, in the Lucian, the Lucian book with the EMI, he said they did a version of Please Please Me that was too slow. They didn't like it because they'd done it too slow. Well, I never did a version that was slow. So they must have done it at some other time, earlier or something.
I looked at Lewison's book, and the way it was written, it was almost as if, well, you'd gone through it, but it wasn't of any quality, so they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering why they would have released your version, but obviously you'd done it properly, and obviously gone through it a few times as well.
I never really got anyone, talking about it at all, really.
Yeah.
But I know that I didn't do any slow version of it, so they must have done that at previous.
Maybe the week, could have been at the week before.
And decided then that was too slow. Yeah. Well, there was another thing on Love Me Do. On Love Me Do, there's a part there where they do a vamp, where they do that dee-da-dee-da-da-da-dee-da.
Yeah.
They do that 3 times and then they stop and there's a cymbal crash.
Yeah.
Well, on mine, you can hear the cymbal. On Ringo's, he must have had a tatty old cymbal because he just kind of goes...
It's like a dull thud.
I had a 20-inch Avida Zildjian from America that...
Oh, yeah.
With a big whoosh.
Yeah. They're still a big name, aren't they?
Did you hear about the EMI issuing that record when they issued my version? Released the wrong one. If they're trying to get some of them back, they've got no chance.
Oh, exactly.
They'll be collector's items.
Yeah. As a few of my friends have said, oh, mine's just arrived. I've got the wrong one. I'm keeping it.
Yeah. Incredible. But they were asking people to bring them back.
Yeah, as if.
Joking.
It's crazy. They've had enough time to prepare it, and they still don't get it right.
I guess it's so further on now that the people who are doing that sort of thing don't know what they're doing. I have no idea. Yeah. They don't understand it.
No. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. But they didn't send me one.
You would have only got paid for the day as a session drummer, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't get royalties or anything like that. How much did you get paid that day?
Oh, well, of course it's all relative, but it was something like £5.50 or something like that. It'd be £5.10 in those days, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
£5.10 shillings.
Yeah, but this is the thing people don't realise.
Yeah.
That was quite a lot of money in those days.
Who else did you play with?
Another record I did was Lulu. Shout. Yeah, I did that one. She was from Glasgow.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah. And we used to have, well, I'd see her later on after that, but we used to speak to one another in broad Glaswegian. Yeah, she was just an ordinary Glasgow girl. A good singer, though.
Yeah, fantastic voice.
Yeah, very good singer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't work with her after that, but I occasionally saw her in a studio or something, I worked with Tony Newley. I did that show, Stop the World. Yeah, I did that in London.
Yeah.
With Tony. As I say, I toured with Marlene Dietrich for 11 years.
11 years, yeah. That must have been an experience.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It made you lazy, though, but it was great because you go all over the world,
Yeah. How did you get that one?
That was interesting as well because to begin with, they booked an orchestra for a couple of weeks at the Queen's Theatre, accompanying Marlene,
Yeah.
And funnily enough, most of the guys in the band were Scots guys. However, at the end, that's the other thing. The conductor then, for Marlene, who travelled with her and everything, was Burt Bacharach. Before he became famous as a
songwriter. Yeah.
But that was an experience. He was a very good musician too.
Yeah.
At the end of this 2-week thing, they said, can the guys in the band, can you do a week in Edinburgh? Because you know how they have a big festival there?
Yeah.
Big music festival. So Marlene was going to do a week up in Edinburgh. So they booked most of the Scots guys anyway. Mm-hmm. And I went up as well. And we did that week, and then Bert said to the guitar player and I, would you like to join with Marlena and tour with her, because the thing was they had a lot of fingerstyle guitar in their program.
Right.
And it took a good player to do it.
I can imagine.
And then they considered that if you have the same guitar player and the same drummer, you're made, because you've got the tempos covered and you've got the guitar thing covered.
Absolutely.
So they asked if we would like to do it, and we said, sure.
Wow.
So that's how it began, yeah. The last time we worked with her, we went to Australia for the third time, and she was probably getting on by that time. She would be about 75, I think. But she's still doing a good job. But anyway, we got to Australia. We're going to do, I think it was 4 weeks or something like that. Anyway, the second week, and this was, I just got a rise before we went to Australia.
Yeah.
And I was getting, it went up to £300 a week. But here again, you see, the pound was $3, so that was $900 a week, which was a lot of money. So we did 1 week, and then we moved to another town in Australia to do the second week. And I think the second night in, she fell in the wings and broke her leg and never worked again. I went from $900 a week to nothing.
And stuck down under?
Then I went back to scrambling in London again, and as I said, eventually went to Scotland.
You're listening to Liddypod, Beatles banter with Bedford and Beasley.
Dave, that was absolutely fascinating. And I mean, obviously I knew, I thought I knew the story behind Love Me Do, but I didn't realise there was some potential confusion over Please Please Me as well.
Well, yeah, so you've got, in Anthology, Ringo saying, he was really fed up because he didn't drum on the first single, which of course he did. But that was probably released in error. So Ringo's on the Love Me Do single, but they thought, that's not the version we wanted out. So when the album comes out in '63, it's Andy White's version that comes out on the album. But on the Love Me Do single, the B-side, P.S. I Love You, is Andy White's version. Then of course, you have this discussion, and they did a run-through of Please Please Me on that same day with Andy, and he was convinced that it's his version that was released on the single, but actually it wasn't. So when you go digging back, the Beatles went back into the studio in November, and Ringo sort of obviously listened to what Andy White had done, but he does his own version of it, Please Please Me, and that's the one that is released. So lots of confusion, and even those who were there are probably the most confused about what went on. But the thing you can really say is, from a Beatles point of view, yeah, it was great to have Andy in to do that for his first single. But after that, Ringo didn't need to be substituted because he found his feet and found his beat. So he was in there.
Great, that's great, Dave. Well, listen, this is going to be our last podcast of 2019. I hope you've enjoyed everything we've done this year. We will be back in the new year. We've got loads of ideas, but we're not going to reveal to you yet what we're going to do because, well, basically we don't know. That's the main reason. We've got loads of ideas. We just haven't put them in any sort of order. But believe me, we've got some great stuff coming up in 2019. So, Dave, as the Christmas season approaches, shall we, as the Beatles would have done, signed off with a Christmas message?
Yes. Was it Merry Crimble to you, Happy Crimbo? And if you really do like our singing, go back to our Christmas episode from last year, where you had banjo and two voices desperately trying to imitate. And I thought the way we pretended to be able to sing out of tune, I thought worked really, really well.
Dave, I think I permanently deleted that podcast. We don't want to subject people to that. But no, you can go back because we did a special on the Beatles at Christmas, didn't we, last year? Well, listen, all that remains to say is that we thank you for listening to Liddypod. We hope you continue to listen in the future and let your friends know about Liddypod as well. Give us a comment, as other listeners have done on all the various media where you can find us. And from me, I just want to say a very, very happy Christmas and a peaceful 2020.
Yeah, I'll echo those sentiments. Beautifully said. You should write these things down, Paul. Have you thought about writing Christmas cards? So, yeah, happy Christmas, happy New Year, happy Easter. Oh, look, here comes the sun.
been listening to LidyPod, Beatles banter with Bedford and Beasley.